Joining us now is someone I have always wanted to meet and always wanted to chat with. Gary Johnson, the former governor of the state of New Mexico, one of the most freedom-loving public officials I know in my lifetime. Governor, welcome to Freedom Watch.
Wow, what an entree. Thank you. Thank you for having me on here, and good to meet you over the phone here.
All right, I'm sorry that we're over the phone, but such is modern communication today, and it's a pleasure to have you. Where do you see the country going, Governor, with the rapid expansion of the size, scope, expense, and regulatory authority of the federal government? It seems to be growing with every tick of the clock these days.
No, I completely agree, and I see the financial crisis that we are facing, and the debt that is going along with that is something that's going to really undermine, I think, this country for many years to come. It's got to get addressed.
Do you share my view, Governor, that it almost doesn't matter which party is in power, that in the Bush years we had their version of big government, which assaulted the Constitution under the First, the Fourth, and the Fifth Amendments, and now we have the Democratic version of big government, which is assaulting the Constitution under our economic liberties, and that without some fundamental change in the way people think about the role of government in our lives, we are almost doomed, as Jefferson said, to government and order increasing and personal liberty decreasing?
Again, I am appalled. I'm very, very disappointed in Republicans that had control, of course, of Congress and the presidency and ran up record deficits. That's going to pale relative to the new deficits and spending. And again, Republicans sure didn't come through, and so relative to doesn't matter who is in control. Hey, we've just had that played out, and again, I'm very, very disappointed by it. And yeah, what's happening right now again is just this seemingly endless horizon of eroding liberties, and I'm going to believe in the hope side of this that people wake up.
Governor, should the recreational drugs be legalized at the state and federal level, and if so, why?
It is my opinion, and I've been highly outspoken on this, it's my opinion that 90% of the drug problem in the United States today is prohibition-related, not abuse-related. And that's where our concentration ought to be, is this 10% abuse. And yes, I do believe that marijuana should be legalized. I believe that if marijuana were legalized, we would have less overall substance abuse. And with regard to all the other drugs, I think that first and foremost we should look at harm reduction strategies, and that starts fundamentally with decriminalizing the use of drugs.
Now, when you talk about decriminalizing the use of drugs, what kind of a reaction do you get from the people of New Mexico or wherever you happen to talk about it? I mean, you were once the chief law enforcement officer of that state, as the governor, and people who worked for you, just like I sent people to jail for crimes that I thought shouldn't be crimes, but I took an oath to uphold the laws of the state of New Jersey. You took an oath to uphold the laws of the state of New Mexico, and police that worked for you and prosecutors that worked for you had to prosecute people for laws you thought were unjust. How does that rest with you?
Well, first of all, I found the issue to be really thin ice. That people really once they hear a little bit, they don't move from wanting to shoot people in the head for smoking marijuana to legalizing it, but there's movement in the issue. Again, it's really thin ice. Like I say, I just think it's the biggest issue facing this country today that has a reasonable solution attached to it.
The government.
And again, people were very, very responsive to the issue. I would always point out, look, I'm going to uphold the laws of the state, but I am also in a position to change the laws. And I think that people lose sight of that also, that we make mistakes in this process, and that the drug laws are a big mistake, and that we can change them. And again, as an elected official, I had that ability, and I tried to make the most of that.
Shelley, any tweets for Governor Johnson?
Yeah, actually quite a few, and they all have the same theme. Here's one from Shubik Marketing saying, "We need more Gary Johnsons out there. Is he still a Republican? Has he switched to the Libertarian Party?" And I've gotten about 10 other tweets asking if you're running for president or considering it.
There you go, Governor. Are you still a Republican? Have you joined the Libertarian Party? When can people see your name on the ballot, and will they see you in 2012?
Well, I am still a Republican, and I think I've been asked about a run for the president by, I've been asked the question a lot, and my response is I just think it's terribly inappropriate to be expressing those desires when Obama has just taken office, and that I think everybody wants to see him have a chance. What I'm seeing of that chance is that, again, it just appears as though personal freedoms are being shoveled out the window more and more.
Do you think that there's a chance, Governor, for the concept of state nullification to take hold? I mean, we have a liberal Democratic administration. We have a president who, correct me if I'm wrong, acknowledged the use of recreational drugs in his youth, much as you have. You don't anymore, but you acknowledge that your use of it in your youth. Do you think that now is actually a time, with liberal Democrats running the government, that we might actually see from certain states the nullification of certain federal laws, or the attempt to nullify them, with respect to the personal private use in the home of recreational drugs?
That would be great. I mean, I would love to see that. I can't, Judge, I have no idea whether or not that's in the off, or any states have been talking about it. I believe that with regard to alcohol prohibition, that as far as my history understanding goes, that New York and its saying that it would no longer enforce prohibition laws was really the domino that triggered prohibition of alcohol to fall.
I've actually argued, Governor, that the states should direct their entire apparatus not to enforce any federal laws within the state, because the federal government is financially and by virtue of its resources incapable of enforcing all the laws, particularly the drug laws, without assistance from the state. Just as a little aside, because there is some breaking news, Governor Mark Sanford of South Carolina, who surfaced after 7 days on the high seas, has just announced at a press conference, this is the second major Republican to make this announcement in a week, that he's having a sexual affair with a woman to whom he is not married. So here we go again.
Great, great.
You see why people are asking you to throw your hat in the ring, Governor Johnson?
Well, Mark Sanford aside, your earlier comment, something that I always talked about was the constitutional pieces of this country, and the fact that states are laboratories of democracy. And just imagine if 50 states were let loose without the constraints of federal law, the federal umbrella that come to play, and that how so many public issues would improve as a result of seeing the states given their constitutional right to go about solving those problems.
It was actually an unusual coalition, and I don't know if these two ever met, of one of the most liberal Supreme Court justices in the post-World War II era and one of the most conservative presidents in the same era, who used that very phrase, the states are a laboratory of democracy. Justice William Brennan from my home state of New Jersey, appointed by Eisenhower but turned out to be probably the most prominent liberal in the past 25 years, argued fiercely that the states should be laboratories of democracy. And Ronald Reagan, of course, used to say you should be able to vote with your feet, meaning you can walk to and live in the state where the laws are to your liking. And that the more the federal government regulates, or in the case of spending, we'll pay for the paving of the highway if you lower the blood alcohol limit that you'll permit people to have when they drive, in bribing the states, then the states would be true laboratories of democracy, and people could find a corner of the nation where they like the laws and like the freedom, or like the order and like the restriction, whatever the case may be, and go where they are happiest.
Bravo, bravo. One of the issues here in this state was limousines and the inability to have an open container in a limousine. And if I were to have vetoed legislation regarding that, I would have given up about $8 million in federal highway funds. Well, I think the open container laws are responsible for litter on the highway. I don't know why there are open container laws. Why not give the police a visual aid when it comes to drinking and driving? But again, the federal government ends up dictating, and because of that, a whole lot of common sense, in my opinion, goes out the window.
I argued in one of my books, and I've done many times at Fox, Governor, that the federal government actually bribes the states. I mean, if I came to you and said, I will pay to pave this highway if you will change your official policy of the government, you'd have somebody arrested me for attempting to commit a bribe. But the Congress does that every day of the week to the states, and the Supreme Court said it can do it. And the states never reject the cash. They always accept the bribe.
Well, and again, I had to sign a bill outlawing open containers in limousines so that we could comply with federal highway funding. Just one example of just what you're talking about.
Governor Gary Johnson, governor of the great state of New Mexico, it's a pleasure to have you on. We hope you'll come back and join us on a Wednesday at this time on Freedom Watch.
It's a deal. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Governor.